What's up, gamers? Have you ever actively gone out of your way to avoid a certain piece of media or hid the fact that you're a fan of said media because the fanbase has such a horrible and toxic reputation? Because I certainly have. Toxic fanbases have existed since the beginning of time, but thanks to the inflammatory nature of social media algorithms, it feels like they're becoming increasingly prevalent.
I'm Pickle Rick!
Which is why I will be ranking the top 10 most toxic fandoms to ever exist online. Wish me luck. Welcome everyone to Fanbase Field. Although it may look like a peaceful little fun little gay old time, but you're quite dangerous. This is the realm in which all the toxic fandoms rule. These fandoms are so incredibly toxic, that's why I'm wearing this gas mask. If you even so much as inhale the same fumes, you're a goner. Goner, G-O-N-E-R, not Goner, the dog from Jimmy Neutron. Number 10. My Little Pony fans, aka bronies, or pegasisters. Listen, there's nothing wrong with liking a show that's directed towards children as an adult. Lots of these people get shit on constantly, both online and in real life, and that's not cool. Most bronies and pegasisters are completely chill, normal people, but all it takes is a few bad apples, to completely ruin the fanbase's reputation. You see, the brony fandom originated on 4chan, a platform rampant with various forms of bigotry. Despite the tagline of the show being "friendship is magic," some corners of the fandom seem more interested in spreading hate. The prominence of gooner culture, or rather, clopper culture, is also a contributing factor to the fanbase's reputation, whether it be the extreme volume of Rule 34 art of the characters online, or the infamous Rainbow Dash jar. Okay, very funny guys, you can let me out of here now. Don't you think making this joke in 2026 is sorta beating the dead pony? Hey, don't you look at me like that. With all this material, it's far too easy for an underage kid who's a fan of this children's show to look up the name of their favorite character and accidentally stumble upon some graphic pornography. Number 9. Dream SMP fans. At the height of its popularity, Dream SMP had some of the most deranged fans to ever step foot on the internet. Because much of the fandom was children, and most of this took place in the era of the COVID-19 lockdown, it only makes sense that many young alienated minds would develop intense parasocial relationships with members of the group. Prior to his face reveal, Dream wore a mask. That's what the mask is, that's what the point of the mask is, yeah. Everyone who's even heard of Dream once probably knows that fact about him, at least, if nothing else. But certain fans felt entitled to know what his face looks like, and so they did what any reasonable person would do and took it upon themselves to dox him. Listen, I realize that nowadays we're aware that Dream and some of the fellow SMP members weren't exactly morally upstanding citizens, to say the very least, but this does not excuse the deranged behavior of people who would actually do things like this and think that it's okay. Shipping art exists within every fandom, but when it involves real people and minors, the people making that should be. Number 8. The Amazing Digital Circus. The Amazing Digital Circus is quite possibly the most successful independent animated web series to ever exist, created, written, and directed by Gooseworks, who I've been told I look like. I don't see it. Unfortunately for Goose, her fanbase contains severe levels of toxicity. Despite referring to themselves as fans, they went out of their way to harass Gooseworks and multiple people who work on the show over, let's see, Goose saying that Pomni and Jax are the main characters of the show, and not mentioning Ragatha. What?
Well, Family Guy, it's gone on for such a long time, this crazy show. I never would have thought it would have gone on for so long, it just started with some doodles and voice impressions like Peter and Brian, and those are just the main characters. There's a whole world of characters in the show.
He didn't just Oh my god. Dear Twitter, Seth MacFarlane seems to think that his main characters on his show are Peter Griffin and Brian Griffin instead of Stewie Griffin, the obvious other main character. Typical of him to play favorites and choose Brian Griffin over Stewie. Seth MacFarlane has also said that Brian Griffin is his self-insert. Curious. Considering Brian Griffin is a complete evil scumbag, surely that must mean that the real-life Seth MacFarlane is an evil scumbag too. We should be hit by a car. I wish Brian never came back after he got hit by a car. Thank you to everyone who liked and retweeted my posts, and to everyone who quote tweeted or replied negatively. Just know, you are going to hell. That was a good use of my time. It got to the point where both Goose and the production company Glitch itself had to acknowledge the harassment, with Goose even going as far as to say that after the finale she doesn't want anything to do with the fandom, and hell, who can blame her? It's good to feel attached to a show and the characters within it. Otherwise, what's the point in watching? But when connection turns into entitlement over creative decisions, to the point where you're treating the person who created the very character you feel connected to like shit, then you need to seriously take a step back and reevaluate your actions. This isn't to say that you can't criticize the writing in the show. If you sincerely believe that certain setups weren't paid off as well as they could have been, then expressing that is totally cool. But there is a fine line between criticism and harassment. I wrote it on the whiteboard because this is going to come up more than once. On top of this, there is a serious racism problem within the community. You see, some cast members made a bad joke on a Jackbox livestream 7 years ago, and though many people were rightfully pointing out the distasteful nature of the joke, some people used it as an excuse to disguise their bullying as social justice. To make things worse, other community members used this as an opportunity to act racist and invalidate the perspectives of POC fans and label all criticism as hatred, which then led to other people using the racist fans to further their harassment by labeling Gooseworks as a racist, despite her making statements to the contrary, where she disavows the racism in the community. I'm not saying racist jokes shouldn't be criticized. It is very much not my place to be making such a statement, but what I am saying is that there is a difference between criticism and harassment, and although most of us know that, those who don't give everyone else a bad name. Number 7, Has-Been Hotel / Hellaverse. Has-Been Hotel and Hellaverse are two other incredibly popular animated web series turned TV shows. Even if you've never watched the show itself, you've likely seen memes about the creator Vivzy Pop adding unnecessary swearing to the dialogue or criticizing her character design choices. Viv's shows get a lot of shit online, both valid criticism and unnecessary hatred, and despite both shows being quite inappropriate for children, a large portion of the fandom tends to be minors. That's not the fault of the show, but as we've previously established, younger fandoms tend to be more toxic. Vivian has historically acknowledged both valid criticism and genuine hatred in a combative way on multiple occasions, to the point where she was driven off of social media more than once from the backlash she received. Sadly, because some of her fans are parasocial weirdos, it then leads to critics of the show and Vivian getting harassed and labeled as harassers themselves, even if they weren't part of the initial harassment to begin with. This is one of those instances where both the fans and the haters are both on near equal footing in terms of their levels of toxicity. That's one of them Plane fans. They're part of the Planes movie fandom, you know, Planes, the spin-off of the Cars movie, but they're planes instead. Planes fire and rescue anyone. Number 6, Snyder Bros. Snyder Bros are people who idolize the director Zack Snyder and the DC Comics movies he directed. Unfortunately, his adaptation of Justice League was not particularly well received. This is because partway through the film's production, Zack Snyder had to step away after the tragic loss of his daughter and was replaced by a different director. And so began the #ReleaseTheSnyderCut movement. A large group of Snyder Bros expressed their desire for Snyder's version of Justice League online. Lots of these folks were just ordinary people wanting to support a film director they like, which is honestly pretty understandable. But of course, in all toxic fandoms, there's always going to be some people who just take things too far. And by taking things too far, I mean sending death threats to studio executives. But eventually, their campaign succeeded. The Snyder Cut was released. You'd think they'd be pretty happy, right? Well, then they just started sending death threats to critics who made negative reviews of the film. On top of this, it turns out that many of the accounts who were demanding the Snyder Cut turned out not exactly to be Snyder bros, but to be Snyder bots.
What? We watch things too, you know.
Despite the Snyder DC cinematic universe being over, Snyder Bros have maintained their level of derangement, only directing it towards James Gunn's DC cinematic universe, and those who speak positively of it. On top of this, back in February, Zack Snyder went on a podcast and said, anyone who calls his fans toxic can go fuck themselves.
They really did a lot of good, and I think that they catch a lot of flack for being toxic or whatever, but they literally saved human lives, so you can go fuck yourself if that's what you think.
I know lots of his fans are normal, cool people. Hell, plenty are amazing people who raised millions for suicide prevention to honor Zack's daughter, who tragically took her own life. But that doesn't miraculously absolve all the Snyder Bros of their wrongdoings. Without the proper nuance, one of the toxic bad actors in the Snyder community might mistakenly interpret Zack's comments as enabling their behavior. You could have just said, yeah, some of them are toxic and take things too far, but most of them are okay. But no, to deny it outright and say anyone who suggests otherwise can go fuck themselves. This is the main reason why this is ranked so far up on the list. Number 5, Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift fans, or Swifties, are likely the largest fan base on this list, leading to a wide range of toxicity levels. Lots of Swifties are regular people, but some of them are toxic to a frightening degree. They're so toxic, I mistake them for Britney Spears fans. You get it? Cause she has a song called Toxic. You get it? Okay. Sorry. Moving on. Enjoying her music is one thing, but many Swifties basically worship Taylor, despite the fact that she's a billionaire pop star whom they'll never meet. This has led to critics of Taylor facing high volumes of harassment from fans. Reporters received threats of violence, doxing, and false accusations of pedophilia and grooming. Hell, former Swifties describe it as a cult. Are we really surprised? Stan culture seems to be an increasingly prevalent thing in the music world, which is ironic considering its origin comes from the Eminem song of the same name, where he explicitly denounces the obsessive behavior exhibited by these people. I realize I'm far from the first person to make that observation. I'm aware of my own lack of originality. You know, I just thought I'd say it in case someone wasn't aware somehow. I just thought I'd say it again, okay? Leave me alone. This here, chemotherapy gun, so I can defeat all the most cancerous fan bases. Number 4,
vegan mayo.
BTS.
So good it doesn't come from an animal. Mayo, mayo, mayo. Instead of eggs, I use soya from the soil.
Unless you've been living under a rock for the past 15 years, you've likely heard about this big deal known as K-pop. Pop music from, you guessed it, Korea. From K-pop demon hunters to Casey Neistat. K-pop! This stuff has been completely inescapable since the days of Gangnam Style. But by far, the most popular in the K-pop genre is a little boy band known as BTS. These guys might be the closest modern day comparison we have to the Beatles in terms of sheer popularity and widespread fanatical obsession. Beatlemania ain't got nothing on these fellas. But alas, with great popularity comes greatly deranged lunatics within your fandom. That's not how I remember that quote going. I think Uncle Ben may have had a bit of a soju problem. Although many K-pop stans have exhibited toxic behavior, one fan was arrested for ringing Jungkook's doorbell 133 times. Hell, there's an entire group that calls themselves Sasang fans, who go out of their way to stalk various K-pop idols as a sport. Yet again, most of the fans are cool, normal people. Even some of the more extreme stans have done good things like flooding white supremacist hashtags with fan cams, directing their harassment abilities towards worthy targets. But with a weapon as powerful as the BTS Army, though it has potential for good, if left unchecked, it could destroy an entire planet. Just like the Death Star. Number 3, Star Wars.
Star Wars fans are the most disappointing thing since my son.
It goes without saying that the Star Wars franchise isn't what it used to be. What was once a beloved trilogy of films is now just an endless sea of cash grab, reboots, remakes, sequels, spin-offs, you name it. Though Disney has certainly taken the milking to a new extreme, lots of fans at the time considered George Lucas's Star Wars prequel trilogy from the late 90s and early 2000s to be part of the same problem, with the films receiving lots of criticism for anything from its writing to the CGI and to the comic relief side character Jar Jar Binks.
Misa thinks the haters are just jealous.
Listen, criticizing these films is not a bad thing. The bad thing is that some toxic assholes took it upon themselves to harass people who worked on the movies. It got so bad that Ahmed Best, the actor who played Jar Jar Binks, even contemplated suicide. The toxicity still continues to this day, with Kelly Marie Tran being harassed off the internet for being the first woman of color to lead in a Star Wars film. Moses Ingram faced the same racist bullshit 4 years later after being cast in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and the Acolyte got review bombed into cancellation for the same disgusting anti-woke BS reasoning. I get disliking modern Star Wars. I also dislike modern Star Wars. But if your reasoning has to do with it being too woke or whatever, instead of it just being some corporate slop that's using people's nostalgia to manipulate them into shoveling over cash, then you just need to grow up and reevaluate your entire outlook on life. Hell, even if your reasons to dislike the franchise are completely valid, there's still a difference between criticism and harassment. Please do not forget this crucial fact. This is the lesson of the video. Sorry, I'm supposed to leave that till the end.
As long as we don't come across any sort of landmine fans, then we should be totally...
Number 2. The Last of Us Part 2. Now listen, if y'all ain't an epic gamer like me, then this entry may come as a surprise. A video game slash TV show about zombies? What could be so toxic there? What could the fandom be so toxic about? I can assure you, these fans are more toxic than the creatures in The Last of Us themselves. In case you haven't played the games or watched the show, I'll exclude any major spoilers, but in part 2, the protagonist Joel is essentially replaced by a new character called Abby. The way in which she is introduced essentially primes the audience to not like her. Despite this, we are forced to play as her, although many were upset for valid reasons. Because Abby is a muscular woman, some of the more misogynistic incels in the fandom got pissed that she didn't look like the stereotypical, overly feminine and sexualized women that they like to be able to jerk off to in their video games. This is pretty much Gamergate type shit. I mean, it took place after the time of Gamergate, but you know, same sort of premise. This, plus the fact that Ellie is gay and Lev is trans, led these chuds to obsess over the idea that this game promotes a woke agenda. Upon release, The Last of Us Part 2 was review bombed to shit, and Laura Bailey, the voice of Abby, got harassed in the most severe and disgusting way I've ever seen. Not only were these pathetic scrotum sniffers threatening Laura, but they were literally threatening her newborn baby. Jesus Christ, that's some Gustavo Fring levels of depravity right there.
I will kill your infant daughter.
This behavior only repeated itself when the games were adapted into a TV series, with review bombing worse than the games, and Bella Ramsey facing a great deal of harassment for being both non-binary and supposedly unattractive, which for the record, I disagree. Alright, before I reveal the number 1 most toxic internet fandom, here are some of the dishonorable mentions. Sonic. Undertale / Deltarune.
Talk to me.
Rick and Morty. Five Nights at Freddy's. Homestuck. My Hero Academia. And without further ado, here is the number 1 most toxic fandom. Number 1. Steven Universe. one of the quintessential Cartoon Network shows of the 2010s. Steven Universe is a show all about empathy, forgiveness, and inclusion, which makes it all the more ironic that the fanbase is as toxic as it is. If anything, they weaponize the lessons from the show to act morally superior to those whom they criticize. The most notorious incident was in 2015 when Paige Paz, a 20-year-old Tumblr artist, faced severe harassment for a drawing of Rose Quartz, a plus-sized character thinner than she was in the show. People dedicated entire blogs to documenting every single supposed wrongdoing she committed, creating entire echo chambers centered around how horrible of a person they thought she was. For months, the harassment continued, with multiple people telling her she should kill herself. This culminated on October 27th, when Paige Paz attempted to take her own life. Luckily, this attempt failed, and she survived. When I first started working on the script for this video, I thought it was going to be just silly, fun and games, nothing too serious. But this is the third time I've mentioned suicide in this video, so I just want to quickly get out of the way. If you're ever feeling like you're having some maybe less than safe thoughts in regards to that subject matter, do not hesitate to reach out and get help, whether it be to a friend or a family member or to a professional. Please, do not make that mistake. It is a long-term solution to short-term problems. Even if it may not feel like it in this very moment, things will get better. Brighter days lie ahead. Let's just continue on with the video. At least one of the harassers was arrested for telling Paz to kill herself, and thankfully Steven Universe fans learned their lesson to never harass anyone ever again. Not. Although the Paz incident is by far the most severe, fans of the show would go on to harass a storyboard artist and writer on the show off of Twitter for drawing ship art of Lapis and Peridot. Luckily, the Steven Universe fandom's days of toxicity seem to be in the past, with many of the fans growing up and moving on to other interests. But it's important to remember as a prime example of just how lethal a fandom's toxicity can get when left unchecked. At the end of the day, most people in the fandoms mentioned aren't like this, and we shouldn't jump to conclusions about a person based solely on a community they happen to be lumped in with. Lots of the toxic people in fandoms are just immature kids and teenagers who will eventually grow out of it. It's crucial that we remain vigilant against bullies of any kind. But remember kids, the more time we spend getting in fights with people online, the more revenue we generate for tech oligarchs who don't care about humanity. So try your best to spend your time online in a positive capacity. And if you feel the urge to interact with some rage bait, then it may be time to take a quick break and go touch some grass. Thank y'all so much for watching. This was a fun video to put together. I hope y'all liked it. Do you disagree with the order in which I placed these? Were you part of any of these fandoms? Are there any toxic fandoms I forgot about? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to tune in next time when I go